of just always having that need to do it better. How could we do it better? And it just causes me to just be overly critical.
Because I had a really challenging childhood where I was told, like my mother literally told me she didn't want me to leave. Feel like I'm unwanted, and I'm extremely sensitive to being left out or overlooked, and can take that very personally. And is insecurity is really a function of what your identity is secured to, and so.
Because many times we know it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. And
he's also my biggest cheerleader. Or I should say he's the one that matters the most. So I think for me with the insecurity piece is just him encouraging me and me being able to accept it versus deflecting it. Yeah. Like, oh, you're just saying that. It's like.
Hey, I'm Travis.
And I'm Adele.
And we are The Noble Marriage. We hope that through our channel, you will be inspired and motivated so that your marriage will be all that God created it to be.
Hey, and welcome back. We are in the middle of a little mini series with Pastor Tim and Nona Jones. And we are so excited for you to continue this series. If you haven't started from the first video, you're gonna wanna go back and check out that first video, and I'll put the link up in the right-hand corner. We hope you enjoyed today's video.
That's good. The next thing I wanna talk to you guys about is something we call a thorn in life. You may or may not have heard it talked about this, but it's kind of like the fears that we have in our lives that hold us back and that keeps us from experiencing life fully. Like for me, my thorn is I am constantly feeling like people are judging me and that I'm a failure. And so I go through life and I try to protect that thorn, put bubble wrap on it, and I don't want people to get near that judgment or I'm a failure. Do you have another way of describing it?
Yeah. And like for me, it's I'm not good enough. And it's another way of looking at how the enemy really gets inside of you and starts to tear you down. And the reason we call them thorns is because they're so attached to our heart and how we feel. And in a marriage, it just so happens that our spouse is the one who pricks it the most.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So having said that, what is the thorns that your marriage works around, and how do you work through those?
Again, I probably would say the criticalness in my life. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the fear of failure that you're talking about there. Of just always having that need to do it better. How could we do it better? And it just causes me to just be overly critical. And it's not even so much critical of other people as much as it is of myself. And what it does in our marriage, my wife is generally just a happy-go-lucky person. I mean, she doesn't let anything bother her at all. I mean, she just moves and does stuff and whatever.
That's why when the Peter side comes out, people are like, yeah, it takes a while to get there though.
But me, I scrutinize and analyze everything, probably way too much. And so I think that's one of the things that's a struggle for me, and that God is still continuously working on me on.
Yeah. And I think I similar to you in the insecurity piece, the way that it shows up though is a little bit different. Like, because I had a really challenging childhood where I was told, like my mother literally told me she didn't want me, and she made it clear through her actions and decisions that was the case. And so I constantly feel like I'm unwanted, and I'm extremely sensitive to being left out or overlooked, and can take that very personally to the point where it's like, oh, of course they would leave me out. Of course they wouldn't, have anything good to say about me because, I mean, who would? Look, I wasn't even wanted by my mom. And so those are some of the things I struggle with, which is actually why. So actually this coming September, I'm releasing another book called Killing Comparison, because it's my own personal journey dealing with insecurity, getting free from it, and dealing with the outgrowth of comparison and trying to figure out how I measure up in relation to other people. and realizing that that's a toxic measuring stick,
It's a trap.
because it's a trap, because where people, depending on what a person thinks about another person, that changes all the time. So you could be better than someone today and worse tomorrow. It just depends on how people feel. So yeah, I would say the insecurity piece, and the thing God has helped me to understand is insecurity is really a function of what your identity is secured to. And so I really try to stay very aware of what am I securing my identity to? Am I securing my identity to my job, to being married, to my children? Am I securing my identity to how many people are coming to hear me speak, or how many people buy my books? Like, if I'm securing my identity to those things, that's an unstable foundation. So of course I'll be insecure.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, now you see why she's my counselor.
Well, how do you work through, let's say you both just pricked those thorns in each other. How do you work through an argument in your relationship?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, because like, for example, when my wife was talking about her childhood, I've had to learn to be very careful of how I talk to her, because my criticalness can trigger the feeling of, you're trying to, come at me, or, the way that I come at her triggers that with that. So what I've had to learn to do, at least in our marriage and dealing with her, is to make sure I watch my tone. Because many times we know it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. And many times I can come over aggravated and irritated and frustrated, and that triggers her. And then I think for her, at least one of the things that she does for me is that she's just my biggest encourager. And when she sees me in those moments to where I'm getting down in despair, she comes over and does something very foolish or stupid. Like she'll throw something at me, or she just tries to liven up the mood. She comes in there and just does all these silly things to get my mind off of it. So
yeah, I think I know, I can tell when his thorn has been pressed, and I will, like, usually I'll just say tone, or I'll just be like, okay, pastor, like I'll try to say something to just like lighten it, and then he'll like come back to himself and it's like, oh yeah. And I think for me, like, I think similarly, he's also my biggest cheerleader, or I should say he's the one that matters the most. So he will be, and it's funny because I think sometimes we dismiss each other, which is funny because like I'll tell him, oh my gosh, you look good or today or something, and he'll be like, oh yeah, whatever. Or he'll preach and I'll be like, oh man, that was an awesome message, and he'd be like, yeah, whatever, because he's like, well, you're supposed to say that. And it's like, honey, if I didn't think so, please know, I would tell you this is what you need to do differently next time. And vice versa. So he'll be the one to be like, oh, you look good, and I'll be like, okay. Or he'll say, man, that was an awesome, presentation, whatever. So I think for me with the insecurity piece is just him encouraging me and me being able to accept it versus deflecting it. Like, oh, you're just saying that. It's like, no, it's an expression of love.
Oh, I can so relate to that, because in my childhood, we had to look and act a certain way so that other people would think certain things about us. So I picked up perfectionism and a lot of self-critic that when he would encourage me or tell me I look nice or anything like that, I actually didn't even hear it. Because in my mind, I'm putting something critical up against it, and it's not allowing that compliment or that encouragement to even enter my heart. And that's been a journey for me to just let go of that perfectionism of, like, we use the acronym of GETMO, good enough to move on.
I love it.
Love that.
I love it. Yes.
I was so I would get so focused and critical of getting better at things that I wouldn't move on when I really needed to.
Yes.
So that's been a journey for me. So I really relate to what you were saying about that. Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing that. And
you call it the vicious vortex. We call it heated fellowship. That's
we don't have arguments. We have
heated fellowship. And usually it was because something built up. And so something would trigger it, and then we would start to like spew all this stuff out. It was like, but that happened like 6 months ago. Why are you talking about that now? You never said anything before. And then that would create, instead of letting something build, It's like when it happens in the moment, we'll just go to each other and just be like, hey, I want to tell you when this thing happened, it hurt my feelings, or
because it's during those moments that you're hot and you're more likely to spew off things that because you're in that moment, you're going to say, but you're going to regret
later.
Later, the temperature is rising. Is to just learn to just stop it and just say, hang on, wait a minute. This isn't going right. Like, obviously you're not hearing what I'm trying to say and I'm not hearing.
Just really enjoyed that.
It was.
We hope you enjoyed it also, and we'll see you in the next video.